Well, hello, driver education students, and today we're going to be taking a look at the rules of the road book and actually getting into the material that's contained within it. There are 13 chapters in this book, and we're going to go through it chapter by chapter and make sure that you are well aware of all of the information that you need to know to be a legal driver and, more importantly, a safe driver on Illinois roads as well as roads all across the country. So I apologize for my casual attire, but hey, it's the weekend and I didn't want to get all dressed up. So here we go. Let's take a look at the information today. So chapter one is all about the driver's license. What is a driver's license? What do you have to do to get a driver's license? What are the restrictions and what does it allow you to do? So let's go ahead and get into this chapter and see what kind of information we can learn. So, for starters, first things first, you need to be aware that there are different kinds of driver's license, different classifications. And you can see here that what we've highlighted is a Class D license. And that's what you're working toward in this class, in this driver education class. You are working toward a driver's license that has a classification of D. It really is not important that you understand what that classification means. You see here it says any motor vehicle with a gross vehicle weight rating of 16,000 pounds or less. That's really not that important to you on a daily basis. Here's what is important. What kinds of vehicles does a Class D license allow you to drive with? The answer to that is any normal car, truck, van, Jeep, any normal vehicle that your parents would own. What does it not allow you to drive? It does not allow you to drive a motorcycle. It does not allow you to drive a school bus or a semi truck or a limousine. Okay, high passenger vehicles or high weight vehicles or specialty vehicles like motorcycles. Those you cannot drive with a Class D license. For those, you need a commercial driver's license or a CDL, or you need a special motorcycle license. Now, you can drive a moped with a Class D license. You can also drive the slow moving vehicles that you see around town a lot that have now become legal in many small towns, things like golf carts and side by sides. If they are licensed for driving on the road, you can drive those with a Class D license. So any regular vehicle can be driven, but if it's a motorcycle or it's a semi truck or a school bus or something like that, you have to have an additional license. So that's your Class D driver's license. So then, whoops, let me go back one here. This computer's a little slow to respond. I'm getting too big of a rush with it. So, what are the age restrictions? Well, we briefly touched on this on the first day of driver education class, but if you fall into the category of 16 to 21 years of age, which you guys, most of you in here are not 16 yet, but once you get your license, you will be. If you fall into this category, there are some special rules for getting your license. So, as you already know, if you are ages 16 to 17, you have to do these three things. You have to complete an approved driver education program, and the program here at Staunton is approved, so you're in good shape. You have to complete 50 hours of practice driving, and hopefully you remember the requirements for that we talked about the other day. It's got to be supervised by your parent or legal guardian or some other responsible adult age 21 or older that's had their license for at least a year. 10 of those 50 hours have to be at night. And then you have to pass the three parts of the driver's license exam. Do you remember what those three parts are? It's the written, the vision, and the driving. Those are the three parts. So that's what you have to do to get your license if you are under the age of 18. So if you fall into that 16, 17 age category. There are some more rules that we're going to get to that involve people that are under 21 but over 18. And here you go. Well, what if you make it to age 18, which hopefully won't apply to any of you guys, and you still don't have a license? What do you have to do? Well, if you're a first time license holder, so that means you didn't have a license when you were 16 or 17, you don't have to go through all of the steps that you do as a 16 or 17-year-old. You just have to complete a 6-hour adult driver education course. So for someone that doesn't take driver's ed when they're in school, they can take the 6-hour course when they're 18. Now I'm guessing that you guys don't want to wait until you're 18, so let's go ahead and complete driver's ed this 9 weeks, right? And check that off of our list. All right, so age 16 to 20, there are some special rules for you. I've got two slides here. I should say slide one of two rather than page one of two. I'll update that for next time. But wow, I'm really jumping around here. Okay. So if you are age 16 to 20, what are those special rules? Well, you are not allowed to drive any vehicle for hire that is transporting more than 10 passengers. So that rules you out of things like school buses, okay, or just commercial buses. These companies like Cavallo, who's not in business anymore, but these companies like Cavallo that will rent out buses. People can hire them to take them on a bus trip somewhere. You can't drive for companies like that until you're 21. And a lot of them won't even let you drive for them at 21 because their insurance company won't cover it if the driver's that young. You're not allowed to drive a commuter van. So, here we're talking about vans that are for transporting people around, but maybe they don't quite fit into that category. Here we're talking about like the 15 passenger vans. All right. So again, that fits into this category of 10 or more passengers, but it's not necessarily for hire. Maybe you're not being paid to do it, but it holds a lot of people. Okay, so you're not allowed to drive those. And then any religious organization bus. So we already talked about school buses. Well, usually people driving a church bus, it's not for hire. You're not being paid to do it, but you're still not allowed to do it until you're at least 21. And remember, like I said, a lot of insurance companies, they won't cover drivers under the age of 25 in those situations anyway. So it's not even like once you turn 21 that you'll probably be able to do that. So it just depends on the insurance company and depends on the people that are hiring for that. Okay, what else? Well, when you're 16 to age 20, like we said, you can't drive a school bus. You also can't drive a vehicle transporting senior citizens. Now, that does not include people like your grandparents. Okay, we're talking about, working for a nursing home or an assisted care facility, and you're going to drive the company van that drives people around. Even if it's only got a few people in it, you're not allowed to do that. You're also not allowed to do this in a child care situation. That even includes if you've got a home daycare. Okay. If your parent is a licensed daycare provider, you're not allowed to be transporting those children around. Your mom or dad has to do that. Okay. If you are under the age of 18, you're not allowed to drive any vehicle for hire transporting property. So we're not talking about people here, we're talking about property. So let's say that you get a job at Napa uptown. Well, you're not supposed to be driving that vehicle transporting property, so delivering parts around town. You're not supposed to be a pizza delivery person until you're at least 18 years old. Okay, these things are not allowed. And you're also not allowed to drive any vehicle that requires a commercial driver's license. Some additional information. This is true for everybody. This does not just apply to you when you are between the ages of 16 and 20. This applies to everyone. You have to carry your license or permit with you when you drive. You guys are getting to that age where this is something that you ought to be doing all the time. Once you get your permit, that permit should be with you all the time. Okay. So Guys, it's time to get a wallet if you don't have one. It's time to start carrying that thing. The other thing that I see a lot of people doing, and it's totally fine, you've always got your cell phone with you. So a lot of people are tucking that permit inside their cell phone. Okay. So a lot of people transport it around that. But the law is that you have to have that license or permit with you every time you drive. If you don't have it with you, you can't drive. It's illegal. There's this myth out there that, oh, well, you've got 24 hours to produce it. No, you don't. You have to have it when the police officer asks for it. So make sure that you always have it with you. So, what are some exemptions for having a license in the state of Illinois, a license or a permit? Well, if you live in another state and you have a license in that state, you don't have to have a license in Illinois. You can drive with your Indiana driver's license or your Missouri driver's license. That's totally fine, right? I mean, when your parents go over to Missouri, if you guys go with them to St. Louis or something, it's not like they have to make sure that they have a Missouri driver's license also. No, you're an out of state visitor. It's totally fine to visit that state and use the license from your home state. Now, when it comes to permits, which is what you guys will have first, when it comes to permits, that's not always true. So you have to look and see, well, is the state I'm visiting, is my Illinois permit valid? Does it work in that state? Sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes the answer is no. So if you're going to be doing any traveling and you're going to be the driver in another state, you need to look into that before you go to that state to find out. If you're attending an out of state college, a lot of people from our area of Illinois go to college in Missouri. You pick one of the Missouri colleges to go to. You don't have to get a Missouri driver's license when you go over to Missouri. You can use your Illinois license. That's totally fine. If you are active duty U.S. Armed Forces, then your military license, I assume that they do something along those lines, that covers you. And then also farm machinery. There are some special rules for people that are farmers, and so they're allowed to drive farm machinery on the roads without a license. And so you can have people that are under the age of 16 that can drive tractors on the roads, and they don't have to have a driver's license to do that. So those are some exemptions to our rules for having a license in the state of Illinois. All right, name change or address change. So this may not happen to you while you're in high school, okay? But at some point in your life, you are going to move to a different house. You're going to move to a different apartment. Now, if this is just going off to college, you don't have to change your address for that because your permanent address is still your home address. But other than that, if you move to a new address, you have to notify the Secretary of State of that. And you only have 10 days to accomplish that. You have to notify the Secretary of State within 10 days. There are three ways that you can do that. One is you can write them a letter. You can literally sit down and handwrite a letter, and you can find the Secretary of State's address on cyberdriveillinois.com. You can put a stamp on it, and you can pop it in the mail and mail it to them. Okay. So that's one way. Another way, and the easier way, is just hop on cyberdriveillinois.com and you can find the link for changing your address. You can go in and change it. And then the third way, and the one that takes up the most time of your day, is going to a driver services facility. You've got to go to the place where you would go to get your driver's license. Go there and you can fill out the paperwork and change your address. Now, this is really what you ought to do, even though it's the one that's the most time consuming, because you've only got 30 days to apply for a corrected license anyway. So you might as well just go into the driver services facility and get that new license taken care of. Get your address changed and get your license taken care of. But maybe you can't get there within those first 10 days. So make sure you go online, tell them you changed address, and then within that next month, make sure that you go in and get your new license. Okay, so that's if you have a name or an address change. Most common reason for a name change is somebody getting married. So now their last name has changed. That requires you to get a new license as well, and you got to notify the Secretary of State of that change. All right, we talked about this a little bit on day one as well, but you have to provide um, documentation to get this driver's license. You have to prove that you're who you say you are. And so there are lots of ways to do that. But the things that you have to prove are you got to prove your legal name, you have to prove your date of birth, you have to prove your social security number, you have to prove where you live, and you have to validate your signature. Now, some of these are a little trickier for you guys because of your age. You don't have things like a power bill or a water bill in your name that would show your address. But things that you have a school transcript, you got a report card, right? You have those kinds of things. You don't have a lot of things that prove your signature because of your age. And so, when you fill out your permit application, you don't generally at your age, you don't have things that validate your signature. But coming through a school, the Secretary of State's office says, well, the school knows who these people are, so we let the school be their proof of signature. They understand that you're only 15 years old and you don't have a lot of documents out there showing your signature. But these are things that you need to know later in life. So stuff that you want to make sure you have on hand. You have to have your birth certificate on hand. You have to have your social security card on hand. Birth certificate proves your legal name and proves your date of birth. Social security card proves your legal name and proves your social security number. Things like a school transcript or current report card will prove your residency, assuming that your address is listed on there, and then your signature is just proven by you signing those documents. And then you'll have a driver's license that does have your signature on it. But there's a full listing of this stuff in the rules of the road book. All right. Well, you're going to get a driver's license when you turn 16, hopefully, and that license will expire. It's not a lifetime driver's license. So your very first driver's license lasts until your 21st birthday, and it actually lasts until 3 months after your 21st birthday. So you cannot renew it before you turn 21, and you have to renew it within 3 months after turning 21. So it expires, it becomes invalid 3 months after your 21st birthday. Now, the reason you can't renew it before your 21st birthday is because 21 is the age at which buying alcohol becomes legal. And so they want you to wait until you're 21. And then when you get your license, it looks different than it did as your initial license. And so that's why you can't renew it early. And that's why they give you that 3 month window after your 21st birthday. Now, after that, you no longer get that 3 month window after your birthday. You have to renew it before your birthday. Okay, this when you turn 21, that's the only time you got that 3 month window. After that, it's always you have to renew it by your birthday, and it's valid for every 4 years. So you get your license when you turn 21. You'll need to get another one when you turn 25, another one when you turn 29, et cetera, et cetera. When you get up to age 81, then your license is only valid every 2 years. And I know this doesn't matter to you guys. You're like, Mr. Smith, I'm literally 14 years old, or I'm 15 years old. I'm not even thinking about being 81. I'm just letting you know that elderly people, they have to renew their license more often. Okay, and that's the law. And once you get to the age of 87, then your license has to be renewed annually. Okay, just so you know. I know it doesn't apply to you guys yet. It doesn't even apply to me yet. Got a long way to go till I get there. Some questions for you. When will your initial license expire? That very first license that you get, when will it expire? On your 21st birthday, letter A, 3 months after your 21st birthday, letter B, or 6 months after your 21st birthday, letter C? The correct answer is that's right, letter B, 3 months after your 21st birthday. That's when your initial license expires. Okay, and then after that, it's every 4 years. Okay, well, let's talk about driver's license ID card fraud. What does that mean? Well, that word fraud is a shortened version of the word fraudulent, which means fake, or it's a lie. You're presenting information that's untrue. You're lying. Okay. So what does that mean? The following offenses will result in your arrest and possible imprisonment. Okay. You lie to your parents, you're going to get grounded. You lie to the state of Illinois, and they're going to throw you in jail and fine you. They're going to make you pay a bunch of money. So your arrest, possible imprisonment of up to 5 years, and suspension or revocation of driver's license for a minimum of 12 months. So they can take your license away for 12 months or more. So what are some things that will cause these rules to kick in? Well, one is if you sign a driver's license ID card application that includes false information. So what are some examples of that? Well, maybe you lie about your birth date. Okay, you're not going to be 16 yet, but you say you're going to be 16. Well, that's fraudulent. You're lying. And so they can revoke your license, they can fine you, they can even throw you in jail. Presenting false identification for the purpose of obtaining a driver's license or ID card. You make up a fake birth certificate, fake social security card. I mean, this is not stuff that people like you and I really do. I mean, this is movie type stuff, right? But it does happen, and there are rules to prevent it. Okay, just so you know. We are going to get to some things that more common everyday people are guilty of from time to time, and hopefully this will never apply to you. What are some other things that fall into this category? Using a fictitious or unlawfully altered driver's license or permit. You try to change the date on your license so that you can go buy beer or something. Presenting another person's driver's license as if it were yours. You know how many people have gotten in trouble for this over the years? Holy cow. Somebody's off at college and they want to get in a bar. And so they borrow somebody else's license and they get busted because the person checking licenses at the bar is an off duty cop because, those are good people to hire to do that kind of work. And now all of a sudden, you've got yourself busted for using a fake ID, using someone else's ID. Not only are you in trouble, but the person's whose ID it is, they're in trouble as well. Big fines, tickets. They can even put you in prison. And so that covers both of those bullet points there. You presenting another person's ID and someone, or letting someone else use your ID. When you fill out your application, which you're going to do in a few weeks, when you fill out your application, you're going to be asked some questions about your physical and mental health. Basically, they're looking for anything that might affect or impair, cause you to not be able to drive well. Most of this stuff are things that are not within your control. I say most because one of the questions on there is about recreational drug and alcohol use, and it's not whether or not you use them. It's if you use them in a manner that would impair your ability to drive. But there could be things in your life that you really don't have any control over that make it unsafe for you to drive. And so they need to be aware of that too. Maybe you've got a medical condition like epilepsy where you have seizures and the doctors haven't been able to get good control of it with medication yet. Well, if that's the case, you're not going to be able to get a driver's license yet until the doctors can get control of that. And that's for your safety, and that's for the safety of the other people on the roads too. If you're gonna if you're having trouble with seizures or passing out, or if you're diabetic and you have a tendency to crash a lot, your blood sugar crashes, and those are unsafe conditions. So if you have some condition that you think might fall into that category, whether it's seizures or diabetes or something else that I haven't mentioned, that you really feel has a pretty good chance of impairing your ability to drive, then you're going to need to get a doctor to sign off and say that, they'll tell you, hey, yeah, no, we've got this under control, and yeah, I'll sign the paperwork and you can get your license. Or no, we need to keep tweaking the medication or whatever it might be until we get you to a point where it is safe for you to drive. All right. You'll also be told on that application that providing false information to obtain a license is a punishable offense. And we talked about that a little bit already. And we'll talk more about it later. In addition to those things, when you sign up for your license, you're asked for a couple of things. You're asked to join a couple of things. Some of them are optional, some of them are mandatory. One that's optional, but I really encourage you all to seriously consider it is registering for to be an organ and tissue donor. You can do this whenever you get your license. If you are under the age of 18, then it's really a decision that your parents have to make. But if you feel strongly about this, or even if you have questions about this, I highly encourage you to talk to your parents. You know, God forbid something would happen, and if you were to pass away, whether it's a car wreck or whether it's even non-car related, would you want other people to benefit from your organs? Would you be okay with someone getting your heart so that someone that's got a heart condition, could have that healthy heart, and now they can have a longer, healthier life because of that? It's things like that we're talking about here. So I strongly encourage you to think about that and to sign up for it. Also, voter registration. You guys aren't old enough to vote yet, but at some, in the relatively near future, you will be. And so getting registered to vote is an important thing. And so any person applying for a driver's license or ID card will be asked if you'd like to apply to register to vote. And then selective service. For here we go. It's there we go. Selective service. Federal law requires all males ages 18 to 25 to register with the selective service system. That's in case a draft would ever have to be implemented again. Let's pray that never happens. Well, what about fees? This is not moving forward. Let me try it again. There we go. What about fees? What kind of fees are there associated with a driver's license? Well, your initial license, that means the first license that you get, which includes the permit phase. Okay, that's part of it. So when you get your permit, is when you'll be paying this fee. But that initial license costs you $20, and you'll pay that when you get your permit, and then you won't have to pay again when you go to get your license. Um, if you wait until you're age 18 to get your license, you only have to pay $5. But I think you'd probably rather pay the extra $15 and get it when you're 16. Um, Once you get to the age 21, from 21 all the way to 68, it's $30. Then it gets cheaper as you get older. I didn't put those prices on here because those will change by the time you get to that age anyway, so no sense in learning them right now. But they're in the rules of the road book if you're just curious. If you have to get a duplicate, that means you lost one and now you've got to go get another one. That's $5. Or if you have to get a corrected driver's license or permit, that's $5 as well. All right, quiz time. How many hours of practice driving must you complete with your parents or guardian prior to obtaining your license? Is the correct answer 6, 25, or 50? That's right. 50 hours. You have to get 50 hours of practice driving with your parents or legal guardian. How many days do you have to notify the Secretary of State if you move to a new address? What's that window of time? How many days do you have to notify them? Is the answer 10, 30, or 90? Did you say 10? Because if you did, you are correct. You have 10 days to notify them. What is the fee for your initial license or instruction permit? It's the same fee for both of them. Is it $10, $20, or $30? That's right. You got it. It's $20. $20 for that initial license. Very good. What about the license whenever you turn 21? How much is that license going to cost you? Yep, $30. That license will cost you $30. What about this? It says you have 10 days to notify the Secretary of State. How many days do you have to get that updated license? 30 days to get that updated license. You've got to do 50 hours of practice driving with your parents. how many of those hours have to be at night? How many of those hours have to be at night? If you said 10, you are correct. What about how many hours you have to drive with a driver's ed instructor? Me, here at the school, how many hours do you have to drive with your driver's ed instructor? The answer is on the screen here. I hope it's not 25 because there's no way I would get through all of you students. I wouldn't mind spending 25 hours with you, but there's just not enough hours in the day to drive with 100 students 25 hours each. The answer is six. That's right. Yeah, 6 hours is what you have to drive with your instructor. So, all right, very good. Well, hey, that's the end of our lesson today. That's the covering of chapter 1 from the Rules of the Road book. Not a lot of information in here about how to drive, but a lot of information about what does the driver's license allow you to do. What types of vehicles can you drive? What are the rules about getting a license? How long does it last? When does it expire? All of that kind of stuff that you need to know that information. Okay. So thanks for tuning in today and joining us on this little walk through chapter 1 of the Rules of the Road book. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed it. But even if you didn't, just like my favorite professor, Dr. Phillips, used to say, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. Take care.